to find out what may have happened, what happened prior to this emergency landing, and consequently now this crash. These are images taken a bit earlier. A little bit more clarity there, but clearly just the dark plumes of smoke coming from that Boeing 777. That's a very sizable plane, one that usually has about 3 rows, most typically coming from Asian countries, possibly South Korea or even China, by use of this Asiana Airlines. Our Richard Quest is on the line with us right now. Richard, perhaps some of your sources have given you an idea of what may be unfolding here at San Francisco Airport. What do you know?
Well, the details are still there. I mean, the pictures are exceptionally dramatic as you're looking at them at the moment, as to what would have happened when this aircraft basically had the accident upon which we are now seeing. There will be an enormous amount of speculation on what would have caused it, the circumstances. But the 777 involved, looking at the list of accidents that have taken place on the 777 recently, or at least since it came into operation, this would rank as amongst the worst, once we know, obviously, the fatality and the injury list. Ranking, of course, alongside the British Airways one, which came down at Heathrow Airport. On that particular occasion, of course, the plane was completely destroyed, but miraculously everybody survived.
This flight, we don't know the flight number. We're still working on those sources, but this Boeing 777, this Asiana Airlines, likely its origin coming possibly from South Korea, possibly from China, or perhaps even Japan. Those are areas that are serviced by Asiana.
Everybody's looking at what the information is. Out of Seoul, probably out of Incheon. We're looking at the moment as a 777. We're looking at what the registration number of the aircraft was at the moment, none of which can be confirmed. And until I do, I'd be very reluctant to tell you anything about this particular plane, such as its manufacture time or where it had come from, recent flights or anything like that. All that information is available, and we're efforting it at the moment as we continue to watch exactly what might have happened. But obviously, coming from Incheon, crossing the Pacific, landing at San Francisco, or crash landing at San Francisco.
And Incheon meaning Seoul, South Korea. That's a very usually a very crowded route from Seoul, South Korea, making its way to San Francisco. Again, we don't have any confirmation of how many people on board. But
Asiana, an extremely well-known, reliable, respectable airline. Incheon Airport in Seoul, in South Korea, one of the world's leading airports, regularly in recent years has been voted #1 as the airport. Asiana also one of those airlines that regularly is way up there in the views. Looking again at this aircraft and trying to work out whether it's a 777-200 or the exact nature, we'll have those details in the next few moments for you.
Okay, of course. And, as far as we know, Richard, as we continue to try and get some more information, all we know is that this was an emergency landing and this crash taking place. So one would be led to believe that control tower there, San Francisco International Airport, was ready for this emergency landing, might have already had in place its ambulances, any kind of first responder apparatus in place for such a landing, right?
Oh, I mean, until we know the nature and this, I mean, if this was an emergency landing that was declared, a declared emergency landing, then absolutely. An airport like SFO is amongst the finest in the world, if not the finest in the world, in dealing with these long runways jutting out into the bay and into the ocean, extremely experienced. What we're waiting for details are, of course, is the nature of what was it a declared emergency? Did it happen all of a sudden? The pictures that I'm seeing.
You can't get into the airport.
I beg your pardon.
Sorry, I think I don't know. That was another voice getting in on this on your line. You can go ahead and continue, Richard.
Yes, I apologize. Yes, I mean, looking at the pictures, obviously a crash at speed upon landing, leading to a serious fuel-fed fire of some description. But also looking at those pictures, you can see the evacuation slides have been deployed, and therefore we can expect, obviously, survivors from this incident.
Okay, very good. Richard, don't go far. You're going to work some of your sources. Meantime, also on the line with us is congressional correspondent Dana Bash, who happened to be in San Francisco, in fact, at that airport. Dana, I understand you were at that airport. Were you flying out, coming in? What did you see?
Well, hi, Fred. We're trying to fly out. What happened was we were coming around the highway, trying to get into SFO, and saw smoke. And suddenly there was a lot of traffic. Everybody kind of slowed down, and we all looked over and saw white smoke on the runway. And I was heading in to the airport to come home to Washington, and suddenly a police officer drove by us and said, you have to move over. You can't get into the airport right now. So my vantage point is from the